Hey, now you'll find out what cat's whiskers looks like under microscope, very unusual creature of nature, and what came out of me when I was taking a bath. Under every microscope video, you ask us to show what Cookie's mustache looks like. It's not an easy task. Cookie doesn't want to get under the microscope, and we thought it would be easier just to take out, but whiskers are very firmly in place and Cookie seems to resent this attitude. But luckily, after a bit of searching, we found one of its Cookie's whiskers on our favorite red chair. Great! Now we can take a closer look. Under magnification, the hair looks like some kinda smooth plastic stick. It has no scales, unlike human's hair. But closer we get, the tighter it gets. And the tip of the cat's mustache is very thin. Here's the tip of a needle in comparison, and here the tip of the cat's whisker. It's so thin that constantly moving in the slightest of a bit air. Because cats don't use whisker for beauty, they use them to analyze the fluctuations on the air. It's like a total darkness. Even in the supervision, cat is useless. Cat, thanks to its whiskers, senses that the air in the front object is getting denser and receives information about the obstacle without physical contact with it. Many have asked to see what the wax under the microscopes looks like. We take the candle and put some wax on it. Now, since we're interested in the liquid wax, we melt it over the same candle and put it under the microscope. Wow, cool! You see how dye particles and other elements moving somewhere in the melted wax. Reminds me the blood cells in the blood we showed you. But at one point they all pretty much stop moving and the wax instantly changes its structure to a solid. Without magnification, it's not so fast, but under the microscope it looks like an instant freeze. It's a regular bee, and you all know it brings honey to the hive, which so many people love. But not many people know, in addition to that honey, it brings flower pollen, which is very useful. It looks like colorful grits, and we bought one of those. And I was wondered what it looked like under the microscope. And it didn't look very interesting at first, but wait a minute. Let's zoom in 400 times. Wow! Can you see it? Each particle of pollen isn't homogeneous at all. It's made of thousands of little tiny bead balls. And look, they are not smooth. They're covered with spikes, like coronavirus. Maybe that's why a lot of people are allergic to pollen. I forgot about to eat an orange and it gets moldy. And it turns out it looks like a common snow. You don't need to eat this thing because mold can be very damaging to your body. And let's look at the woman's stocking. They are so thin and light and yet, for some reason, very elastic. We put them under the microscope and we can see there some kind of mesh. Zoom on more and you can see that all the corners of each cells there are some tricky knots of fine thread that looks like fishing line. Apparently, this knot acts as spring, allowing the ties to stretch and then turn to their original position. We saw a picture of broccoli on the internet under the microscope and it looked really beautiful. And of course, we wanted to see the miracle of nature with our own eyes. But to our surprise, in reality, under the magnification, broccoli looks very different. It consists of hundreds of very small flowers, and they're all closed for some reason. They're probably open when the full ripe. Okay, but what did we see? Information in the picture on the internet. And we found this thing. And it turned out the plant that called Romanesso cabbage. It's huge cone on which there are a couple dozen little cones in which 100 tiny micro cones. And in reality, it's very beautiful. And you can see it under without even microscope. We, by the way, of course, then boiled this cabbage and ate it. It's very delicious. I guess there are no one who doesn't even try sushi, and I've always been wondering what kind of shell they wrap the stuffing of the sushi rolls. We bought a piece of this film and placed it under the microscope. Now, this is an interesting structure. It turns out that this film is heavily compressed and dried seaweed. That's what it makes it look like, a piece of plastic bag. And you can even see some of these bumps. Maybe it's algae cells or even somebody's laid legs. And now I'll tell you what happened to me a week ago. By the way, a week before we looked at the urine under the microscope and there were some things looks like a Xbox logo. There were actually lab techs in the audience who wrote in the comments there was some kind of crystals and I might have rocks. I didn't have pay much attention to that, but then one night when I went to take a bath, this happened. I got in the warm bathtub and started enjoying the water. In the process, I wanted to pee. I had to go to the bathroom, but decided not to and pissed in the bathtub because no one would find out. But suddenly, in the process, I smelled something wrong. I felt slight pain in the lower abdomen and some kind of stain came out of me. I thought I'd give a birth to some kind of homunculus, but luckily it turns out to be this balloon, which is a rock that you warned me about in the comments. I immediately took it under the microscope to see what is that. And just look, it's really a ball that made of a bunch of crystals. And these crystals have very sharp edges. Apparently that's why ball came out a certain discomfort. So that's kind of experiment. I feel like I'm like a rock factory.